Okay, ready to go deep. Today, we're taking a deep dive into digital art.
Yeah, and we're tackling this essay you shared. It's really got us thinking about art and technology in a whole new way.
It's definitely not your typical art world stuff. We're going way beyond paintbrushes and palettes here.
Right from the start, this essay jumps right into this provocative idea about technology.
Yeah, they don't mess around.
It's like they're saying technology, it isn't just a tool. It's this
Yeah.
force that actually shapes our reality.
Big claim. But they back it up too with some wild examples.
Pulling from some, like, really interesting sources, too. I mean, who knew science fiction could make you rethink art?
Seriously. 2001, A Space Odyssey, for instance.
Right, that monolith.
Talk about technology upending like everything we think we know.
Right, at our place in the universe, even.
It really makes you think about the power of technology to, like, completely transform our understanding of, well, everything.
And they didn't even stop there. They brought in that whole alien virus language thing from Naked Lunch.
Yeah, that was a trippy one. Like, technology could even rewrite language itself. Whoa.
He's like, could technology change how we even perceive the world?
Okay, at first, I'll be honest, I thought they were going down the whole, are we living in a simulation rabbit hole, like in the Matrix?
It did cross my mind, too, at first.
But I think they're getting at something different here.
Way deeper.
Right. It's not just about, like, is this real or not? They even bring up that movie Existence Z to make that point.
Yeah, where the lines between reality and virtual reality are just,
Impossible to untangle.
yeah, completely blurred.
And maybe it's not even about untangling them, you know?
Exactly.
Maybe it's about understanding how technology shapes all of it, the
Yeah.
real, the virtual, everything.
It's all intertwined.
Okay, but how does this all connect to digital art? Where does that fit in?
That's where things get really fascinating.
Yeah.
So they're saying digital art, it's not just about using fancy gadgets.
It's not just about making cool visuals.
Right. Like shiny surfaces and special effects.
It's more profound than that.
It's about how technology impacts how we see the world and how we make art.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. It's like digital art is a way of, like, grappling with technology's influence, right?
Yes. Like holding up a mirror to ourselves in this digital age.
And to really dig into that, they take us back to the 1980s.
The 80s. Now that was a time.
Big time. They see it as this, like, a pivotal moment in digital arts development. Why the 80s, though? What was so special about that era?
Well, for one, home computers like the Commodore 64,
Oh, yeah, the Commodore 64. I remember those.
they were everywhere.
Like, everyone had one.
Suddenly you didn't have to be in a fancy university lab to get your hands on this technology.
It was in people's living rooms.
And that accessibility, that shift, it unleashed this incredibly creative energy.
So people were, like, inspired to make art with these new machines they had?
Yeah, they were messing around, pushing boundaries. It was a really raw and experimental time.
It's like that raw, experimental energy that's at the heart of digital art for them.
Yeah, like the visual style of those early video games. Think about that aesthetic.
Pixelated, right?
Yeah, those limitations, they forced artists and programmers to get creative, to work within those constraints. And they ended up making something totally new.
And what about the whole online community aspect?
Right. The rise of online communities, that's huge. Bulletin board systems, BBSs.
Oh, yeah, the BBSs. I was way too young to be on those, but I remember hearing about them.
This was the beginning of digital social interaction, this whole new way for people to connect and share ideas.
It wasn't just about the technology itself. It was about the communities that formed around it.
Exactly. That's a key part of their argument. It wasn't just about the machines. It was about the people.
Okay, so you've got technology shaping reality, the rise of home computers, and the birth of online communities.
It all ties together.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
But there's this one more thing the essay keeps coming back to, this idea of hacking the system.
Right. That was a big one for them.
What do they mean by hacking? Are we talking about, like, breaking into computers and stuff?
Not quite. They're using hacking in a much broader sense.
Okay, more metaphorical.
It's about, like, finding creative workaround, pushing the limits of what technology was supposed to do.
Like bending the rules a little.
Exactly. Finding those hidden possibilities within the limitations.
It's funny because sometimes limitations can actually make you more creative, right?
It's true. When you have to work within certain constraints, you have to get resourceful. And that's when those unexpected, brilliant ideas can emerge.
So it's not about breaking the system. It's about, like, cleverly using it in ways it wasn't necessarily designed for.
They see that as the essence of true digital art. It's about subverting expectations, you know?
Okay, I'm hooked, but I need a concrete example. What does this hacking actually look like in practice?
They give this really cool example with the MOS 6581 sound chip. So the sound chip, it actually had a flaw, a bug.
A bug, like a mistake in the programming.
Yeah, like a glitch. But when you manipulated it in a certain way,
You could exploit that glitch.
artists and game designers, they figured out a way to use this flaw to create these incredibly complex and interesting sounds.
Wait, so something that was technically a bug, a mistake, ended up influencing the sound of digital art.
Isn't that wild? A happy little accident that turned into something truly creative.
I love that. It really speaks to the ingenuity of those early digital artists and programmers. They were working with these limitations, these mistakes, and they found a way to make them work for them.
It's inspiring, really.
Absolutely.
Totally. Like turning lemons into lemonade, but for digital art.
Right. It makes you wonder if, sometimes those limitations actually help them be more creative.
It's true. Sometimes too much freedom can be,
Overwhelming.
yeah, you're paralyzed by possibilities.
And the essay, they actually touch on that, this idea,
When they talk about this misconception of digital art,
which is,
that it's just about imitating traditional art forms.
oh, like trying to make a digital painting look like a real oil painting.
Exactly. Like it's not the real thing. It's just a copycat.
And the essay's like, hold on, digital art, it's got its own thing going on.
It's a value, its own unique language, its own...
It's not trying to be something. It's not.
It's breaking new ground.
So how do they illustrate that? What's an example of this, distinct language of digital art?
They talk about byte beat music.
Byte beat. Okay, now you have to explain that. I'm drawing a blank.
Byte beat music. So it's actually pretty simple at its core. It uses really short pieces of code.
How short are we talking?
Sometimes even just one line.
One line of code makes music.
To make these intricate sounds. Really complex stuff.
That's wild. So instead of using instruments or even digital audio samples,
And you're using algorithms, math to make music.
that is so cool. It's completely redefining what music can be, right?
Yeah, it's pushing the boundaries for sure. And they talk about this artist, Visnut.
Biznut.
He's huge in the byte beat world. Really exemplifies this approach.
So is music, it all comes from algorithms and code.
Yeah, really minimal, but it makes you think, you know? There's a depth to it.
It's like that saying, less is more, right? Except with algorithms.
Exactly.
But the essay doesn't just stay in the past, does it? They seem concerned about where digital art's going, especially now with...
Algorithms everywhere.
Right. It's like they're connecting those early innovations in digital art to this whole debate we're having now about, the power of algorithms.
It's all connected.
Because algorithms, they can be pretty influential, shaping our choices in ways we don't always realize,
It's true. And that's what they're grappling with in the essay.
Like with social media, for example. It makes you wonder, am I really the one deciding what I see?
Right. Who's really in control?
Is it me? Or is it the algorithm, feeding me what it thinks I want?
That's the million-dollar question.
It's a little creepy, honestly.
And this is where they bring back that idea of hacking the system.
Oh, right, right.
It's like if those early digital artists were hacking those early computers, figuring out how to make them do things they weren't supposed to do.
Now it's algorithms we need to hack.
We need to understand them at least.
Yeah, because those systems, they're not always designed in our best interests, are they?
It makes you think.
So it's like the challenge for digital art has changed. It's not just pixels and sound chips anymore. It's this invisible code that's shaping our world.
The essay really digs into that.
It's almost like a whole different level of hacking, right?
They have this point, and it's kind of mind-blowing. They bring in Asimov, like the science fiction writer.
Oh, yeah. Isaac Asimov. I love his stuff.
He had this concept, psychohistory, in his Foundation series.
Psychohistory. Okay, that rings a bell, but remind me what that's about again.
So basically, it's this idea that you could, mathematically predict the future. Predict how huge groups of people will act.
By analyzing tons of data.
Yeah, massive amounts of information.
Wait a minute. Are they saying that Asimov basically predicted how algorithms work today?
It's an interesting parallel, right?
It's kind of terrifying, honestly.
Makes you think. And then they go on to talk about video games, how they're like a microcosm of this whole thing with algorithms.
How so?
Think about it. When you play a game, everything you experience, those challenges, the rewards you get,
It's all designed, right?
it's all determined by algorithms working behind the scenes.
To keep you engaged, keep you hooked.
And the essay, they're saying we should bring that same awareness to our digital lives in general.
To our whole digital world, not just video games.
Because if we're not careful, we're just letting these algorithms live rent-free in our heads, right? making decisions for us.
Totally. Like, how do we stay in control, make conscious choices when these algorithms are getting, like, more sophisticated every day? It feels like they're everywhere.
Right. And it's not just about recognizing it,
Mm-hmm.
the influence, I mean. The essay, it also kind of critiques this whole trend, gamification.
Gamification. Now, what do they mean by that?
So you know how, like, it used to be, we'd talk about video game culture, how it's becoming more mainstream.
Right, like video games were influencing everything.
But now it's like everything's becoming a video game.
Oh, I see. I see. Like adding game elements to things that aren't actually games.
Right. Your fitness app, your to-do list.
Even work email.
It's like, ooh, points, badges. Now it's fun. Right.
But is it, though? Is it really more fun?
That's what the essay questions, They're saying this kind of gamification, it's
Superficial.
it's manipulative almost.
Instead of being about, like, genuine engagement, it's just another way to, like,
Control our behavior.
keep us hooked.
Exactly. And it's like it flattens everything,
It's like trying to make everything the same instead of celebrating what makes things unique.
And that's what's so powerful about real games, right?
The challenge,
Yeah.
the
That's
It's all just points and badges.
And this actually leads to their final point, which it's like it brings everything full circle.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Hit me with it.
They talk about this old Atari game, Yar's Revenge.
Yar's Revenge. Okay, you're going to have to refresh my memory on that one.
So it wasn't like a huge hit back in the day,
Okay.
but it's got this cult following now.
Among, like, retro gamers and stuff?
Right. And what's interesting about it, according to the essay, is the aesthetic, the visuals, the sound.
Like, it's a very distinctive style.
Super simple graphics.
Okay.
Kind of repetitive sounds.
It's even...
But it creates this really immersive experience somehow.
Okay, now I'm really curious. How does this random Atari game tie into everything else we've been talking about? We've gone from philosophy to the 80s to AI to...
I know, right? It's a wild ride.
Now, vintage video games, what's the connection?
So there's this moment in the game when you destroy an enemy.
Okay.
This explosion fills the screen. And the way it looks, it's
Intense.
almost like a glitch.
Really?
Like a mistake in the graphics.
That's not a mistake.
The programmer, Howard Scott Warshaw, he actually created that effect on purpose.
How?
He used a visual representation of the game's own code.
Whoa. Wait, so the game is like showing you its own insides.
In a way, yeah, it's like it's revealing how it works.
It's pretty meta.
Right. And that's what the essay is getting at. Digital art, when it's done well, it can do the same thing.
It can, like, pull back the curtain on technology itself.
Expose the mechanisms, the systems that shape our experiences.
So we can better understand them.
Exactly.
So this weird explosion in Yar's Revenge, it's like a metaphor for what digital art can be.
It's about making the invisible visible.
I love that.
And they connect that back to, the whole thing about AI and algorithms.
Right, right.
Because think about it. What was once this clever way to create, like, randomness in a game,
Right.
now it's used to train AI,
No way.
which then shapes the algorithms that,
In our lives.
pretty much it's like this loop,
It's a trip. And
Yeah.
it makes you realize, like, we've got to pay attention
We really do.
to how technology evolves and how it can come back around to shape our world in these unexpected ways.
It's not always a straight line, that's for sure.
Well, this has been a wild ride. So much to think about.
It really has. The essay, it throws a lot at you, but the core message, I think, it's pretty clear.
Which is,
Don't just look at the surface.
don't just look at the technology itself.
Dig deeper.
Yeah.
Think about the philosophy, the history, even the mistakes.
Because that's where the real story is.
Often, yeah.
Well said. And for anyone listening, if you want to dive deeper into these ideas, we highly recommend checking out the essay for yourselves.
It's worth a read.
It'll make you think, that's for sure. And who knows, maybe it'll inspire you to do some digital hacking of your own.